You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's Locked On Texas Tech special edition, Big 12 Weekly, brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Fixes tired fast with zero sugar and a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. So go to 5hourenergy.com and use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB. That's LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. Offer only valid until September 30th on one order. Cannot be used with other promotions. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5hourenergy.com today. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan, back at it again for some bonus action, Chris, and we are bumping up our Big 12 Weekly conversation by a couple of days this week. Well, why? Because you got Big 12 football coming your way tonight. It gets very, very real. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, you will have Big 12 programs on the field. I will throw up a graphic here in case you are watching on YouTube, a Big 12 conference schedule to take a look at for the weekend. God almighty, those are all in the league. This is a long list and takes some getting used to as we take a look at the new Big 12 conference. We'll run through some of what's happening for the remainder of the weekend as well, but wanted to get started for these Thursday night affairs coming up this evening, Chris. It'll be UCF hosting New Hampshire. Colorado will be hosting North Dakota State. The 22nd ranked Kansas Jayhawks will be hosting something called Lindenwood. And the 12th ranked Utah Utes will be hosting Southern Utah. If you're looking on the screen, all the times listed there are Eastern time, so just keep that in mind. But as we get started with the Knights, the Buffaloes, the Jayhawks, and the Utes, a pair of those ranked in a preseason top 25 poll. Another one obviously heavily on the radar because of the prominence of their head coach and some talent that they've got on the roster there in Boulder. But out of what we're going to see coming up tonight, man, what's standing out to you? What do you think?
I mean, you can just look at this whole weekend schedule. One, it is wild looking at this, long list of games. I mean, it's going to be a lot to try to keep track of every weekend, especially when you're not playing each other yet, and there's 16 games to try to follow. There's a few games that stick out this weekend because next weekend is the one that is just flat loaded when it comes to juicy matchups in the non-conference for most of your entire league. Mm-hmm. The Colorado one is a fascinating one. That one's tonight. I think there's a lot of people that feel like the Bison have a chance. North Dakota State's won a ton of championships and all those things. I think they have a key guy out in that game. I think there's been too much chatter about this being an upset, and if anything, Colorado started off like gangbusters last year, and I think that they'll have some success in this game tonight. So I don't, and I'll say this too: we're going to look and point and maybe laugh depending on if one of these no-name programs is hanging with or upsets one of these Big 12 teams, and in some ways it is funny or humorous, but it's not good for the league. I'll tell you that. It won't be good for the league's perception as it relates to the college football playoff. So there certainly is that. It's not like it used to be per se. I think Stanford could make things interesting, but I think TCU is just better. That's a late night road game. I don't know what to think there, but yeah, the Colorado one of night one is interesting. Kansas and Lindenwood, that Kansas is not playing any games at home. So there's that weird component. I think this one's at Arrowhead. And so there probably will be, I don't know, a lot of empty red Chief seats in that one. But the big one is West Virginia and Penn State. This is where your bread is going to be buttered over the weekend as a league if West Virginia and Neil Brown pull that off. I think they're going to do it. I think that's so make sure that you've watch out for the couches.
You're calling it.
Then Morgantown. Yeah, I think that gets done. I really do.
I wanted to mention Kansas. They're playing at a soccer stadium to start it this week.
Okay, yeah, because there's some games that makes sense.
Sporting KC, whatever that is, Children's Mercy Park. Look, they're used to empty seats, home, away, or anywhere in between. So that won't be a surprise to them. But yeah, and then they've got some at Arrowhead, I think, as the season goes along. That Horned Frog at Stanford matchup, I think is maybe a little bit more interesting than it probably should be. But, week one, and you're facing what is still, I guess, they're qualified as a Power 4 opponent. Trying to remember which conference they're in. They're
ACC.
Yeah, the Atlantic Coast Conference. But hitting the road for a late night tilt there tomorrow night, the Frogs and the Cardinal, I think is kind of interesting, but I'm a little surprised. Mountaineers over Penn State. You're already kicking that one out. All right. Looking forward to that one. That's Saturday at 11 a.m. God's time, Central Time. Also on Saturday, you got Oklahoma State, preseason number 17, taking on South Dakota State in Stillwater. Cincinnati and Towson in the afternoon from Cincinnati. Iowa State will be hosting North Dakota. These Dakotas just always seem really tricky.
Man, tell your athletic director out there, coaches, don't schedule anybody with Dakota in it in the
That's right.
I mean, only bad things happen. I mean, Chris,
especially to start the year, man. Week one.
I mean, it's because this is where now the portal era. This is where a lot of Power 4 schools have plucked players though from is these kinds of programs, and so I just wonder how that will affect. But they're always these kinds of teams are always so well coached. And when you're watching the Division II or the FCS type playoffs in mid-December in Frisco, somebody with a jackrabbit or a bison or somebody's running around on the field there in Frisco, and it's one of the Dakotas usually.
Yeah, you always seem to see them factoring in. I mean, it became like a tradition to especially for like a K-State or an Iowa State, to just go ahead and drop a game week one to a Dakota school and then go ahead and win 8 or 9, be in the Big 12 championship game or something like that, particularly if you're K-State later on in the year. So there's a little give and take, I suppose, but yeah, you always got to be on the lookout for them. Speaking of K-State, number 18 preseason-wise, they'll be hosting UT Martin for a night tilt in Manhattan. Baylor gets Tarleton, visiting them in Waco on Saturday night. Houston and UNLV from Houston. Of course, the Red Raiders and Abilene Christian at 6:30 on Saturday night in the LBK. BYU hosts Southern Illinois. Number 21, Arizona, playing host to New Mexico, who was just beaten by, I think Montana State in Albuquerque last week. And Arizona State will be hosting Wyoming. Yeah, we remember them. Arizona's pretty interesting, Chris, because I'm curious to see how they kick off their season. Had a successful year last year. Obviously, head coach turnover, staff turnover, some player turnover, but some preseason top 25 love. So I'm really curious to see how the early goings are for them. It may not be representative of what their season will be at large, but I wonder if the Wildcats might get off to a slow start.
I think the New Mexico team coming in there under Bronco Mendenhall, they were up 31-14, I think, to enter the fourth quarter at home and then blew it. So I don't know where their heads are at. But Arizona's they've got a lot of frontline talent. I mean, they are very similar to Colorado in the sense that they've got potentially 3 first-round draft picks, and then some of that's going to spill into the second round. I mean, they've got a top offensive lineman, the receiver, maybe wide receiver 1. I think a lot of people love the QB, but they also have a corner. I don't know if Afita is not an NFL guy just yet, and he doesn't have the measurables, but the receiver, the offensive tackle, and the DB that Arizona has this is what NFL folks are saying, similar to like Colorado with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter and all those things. And I think it says something about Arizona that's kind of sneaking around the chicken coop, wasn't picked to win this league, but all those guys stayed there. They could have left with Jed Fish and gone to University of Washington, but they stayed there. And boy, if the Red Raiders can maneuver their way through here in the next few weeks, we're really going to start talking about that Arizona game out in Tucson, because that could all of a sudden be a really massive game. But for that reason, in an early October matchup, I'm really going to be paying attention to Arizona really for the next month, because I think that's going to end up on your menu rather quickly, and it's going to be very meaningful, you would hope.
Yeah, and really kind of the same thing, even though they're not expected to be quite as competitive. But for the Sun Devils or some of these other newcomers, obviously going to get a little bit of extra attention. Somebody's going to get snuck up on this weekend. You know it. First, Today's episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Whether you have a long list of tasks at work or a bundle of do-it-yourself projects to tackle at home, take a 5 Hour Energy shot so you can cover everything with energy to spare. If you're like me, you've always got a lengthy list of things to get done around the house. So when you're getting your supplies for any project, don't forget the most essential one, a 5 Hour Energy shot. 5 Hour Energy shots give you the feeling of alertness and energy you need to get in the zone. And that's why 5 Hour Energy is the brand hardworking people like you have trusted for over 20 years to give them the alert, energized feeling they need to get through a busy and hectic day. And you always know where to find 5 Hour Energy shots, right at the cash register at nearly every convenience, drug, and grocery store nationwide. And even better, you can stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy shots. And right now, if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy today, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB. That's LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. Hurry, because this offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions and does not apply to subscription orders. Boost your day and boost your life and get in the Get It Done zone by going to 5hourenergy.com today. Somebody's going to get snuck up on this weekend. You know it. And it may not be in a loss. It may not be in a loss, but it may be a little tighter than expected. Wyoming being an opponent for someone, even though they are on the road this time around. Obviously going to probably get a Texas Tech fan's attention. We mentioned the Dakotas, Houston, and UNLV. I got to tell you, I'm a little bit interested in to see how the Cougars start their season against the Rebels.
UNLV had a great year last year, and Willie Fritz obviously taking over Houston. Houston's actually favored in that game. They're obviously at home, so don't know what to think. But if Houston loses to UNLV, that the UNLV team that won, I can't remember if it was like 7, 8, or 9, but they had a really good year last year. That's not a bad deal. I think people feel like Willie Fritz is going to get that thing turned around, but they've got some work to do. Definitely. Arizona State's the same way. Wyoming also dealing with a new coach. Yeah, exactly. So we were fortunate enough to be part of the farewell tour there.
Sure.
Jeez. And I don't know if there's so much on that West Virginia Penn State game, man. I think that's got a chance to really put your league in a better light if West Virginia gets that done. And it really has a chance for West Virginia to be the one now, because we projected all summer. We've talked Kansas State and Utah, and everybody's got their little picks and everything like that. Nobody else can make a statement like what West Virginia could. They go pull that off. All of a sudden, guess what? The conversation is going to be for the next several weeks is like West Virginia could be a Big 12 contender. They need to be respected now, and all those things. Luckily, you don't see them till the very end, and that game's going to be in Lubbock. But hey, man, we needed games. We need some reaction. We need some, hey, man, they're a lot better than we thought. Hey, they're not as good as we thought. The injuries are going to factor in. It's going to tweak this whole deal, but away we go starting tonight.
Yeah, man, can't wait. And by the way, God bless West Virginia for having a college football schedule that resembles what a college football schedule should be. Also resembles somewhat of a murderer's row, even though the opposition is not necessarily guaranteed to live up to some preseason hype. But they got Albany in week 2, but then it's right back at it with Pitt, as they've got a rivalry game there in their non-conference. I don't know if they'd consider Penn State also one. Maybe they do. I'm sure they don't like each other.
Yeah, they do.
But nonetheless, man, I'm hoping that this college football playoff era, the expanded one, is going to incentivize so many more chances being taken in the non-conference by programs. And as a fan, I'm so here for it. I feel like the college football fan has been so underserved. And I don't mean that obviously from a spirits standpoint, maybe overserved in that regard. But as far as the product, college football fans probably have it as bad as anyone. Some of these weekends you got to sit through in the regular season, and then prior to the expanded playoff, maybe the worst postseason of any organized sport on any level. So we are in for a totally new experience. Haven't quite improved the non-conference portion across the board just yet, but something looking like West Virginia's, I'm hoping, is in the future for many, many others, including the Red Raiders, as daunting as that may sound. And then obviously this is the beginning of a whole new experience as we get into some years forthcoming, Chris, where the postseason is going to be a whole new circus to take in And I think, again, from a fan standpoint, just in general, man, it should be a heck of a lot of fun. But, hey, speaking of a fan standpoint also, you mentioned, what's good for the conference and things like that. And I got to tell you, I'm still a little slow to come to this new reality. I am Texas Tech versus everybody. I hate everybody but the Red Raiders all my life. But can you teach an old dog a new trick? Can I begin to show some conference pride? I guess I'll start to find out this weekend.
I've never been a diehard like Big 12 guy, right? I mean, I thoroughly enjoy it when, UT or TCU or Baylor or some of the teams that you just, when they slip up, are like, can you believe they lost to?
Of course.
I mean, and we can still be this way. I'm just saying, when we get to these conversations in November, December, heaven forbid that the Red Raiders are in a position to get in like an at-large or whatever, and then you look up and that's the argument, is like, well, this league lost to a bunch of teams named Albany, Lindenwood, one of the Dakotas, and that's the tiebreaker, and you're gonna be like, damn. Right. Not that you're rooting one or the other, or the results will happen, but I just know that's going to factor in. That's just the reality of it. And am I going to be sitting there rooting for Neil Brown to beat Penn State? Shockingly, hell yeah, I am. I mean, I think it would be. I think it would be great. So we'll see. And what you didn't see on Cowan's list of games yet, anyway, is UConn.
That's right.
And Brett Yormark, even kind of touching on things this week, even spoke about it, saying, I mean, I'm doing my due diligence. Luckily, though, it's not his call. It's not his call. But the UConn folks certainly want in your league, people. That's the way it appears. They're trying to make the square peg in the round hole fit. So we'll see what happens, because maybe we'll all be traveling up to Storrs, Connecticut for football games at some point soon. Yeah, just what we've all wanted to sign up for, right?
By the way, thank you to all the UConn fans who have been stopping by the YouTube comments section, letting us know how much money your women's basketball program makes. We get it. I mean, I don't think they get it. They were really upset that there was even any skepticism about UConn being additive and not dilutive to a conference. And I've seen some others mixing it up with them in our typical audience in the YouTube comment section, trying to alert them to the fact that football is the revenue generator. And I'm sorry it's that way. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but your football program generates diddly squat, to use an industry term. And so we're trying to figure out, is what the basketball program generates enough, again, to be additive to a conference pie and not dilutive. I'm not against it necessarily, but we've heard from several UConn fans in the YouTube comments from our episode, a week ago, our Big 12 weekly episode, where we talked about the possibility of the Huskies being there. We are very proud of your men's and women's basketball programs, and we are in awe. I just want to make sure you guys know that out here in West Texas. I go to bed every night just thinking about how we could more emulate UConn. So just make sure you know it, but it ain't worth a hill of beans or even a pile of wooden nickels if you're not generating revenue for the conference. So I just want to make sure we get that clear, but keep the comments coming. That's one of the best ways to help us grow the show, and we appreciate it, even from Storrs, Connecticut. I know you agree, Chris, with all of that. Retweet, right?
Absolutely. I rank your rant 5 stars right there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's
appreciate
right.
That. And appreciate a little bonus time from you, my man. Enjoyed it always, and we're going to have things to react to, honest to goodness, football games the next time we get into a Big 12 weekly conversation. So looking forward to that. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, man. Enjoy the games, people. And, remember why you love this stuff, man. Remember why you love it. Ride the wave. Ride the wave.
Oh, that's exactly right. The roller coaster begins now. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks to the everydayers always being out there, of course, and for a little bonus conversation here today. For Chris, I'm Casey. We appreciate you being out there and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.